You know what? I have a great example of mental judo or verbal judo. I got my sucker friend Ryan to start a podcast with me.
I don't know how that even happened.
Gotcha.
When? Oh no!
Welcome to Theoretical Nonsense, the Big Bang Theory watch-along podcast. No PhD necessary.
We're the podcast that recaps all episodes of The Big Bang Theory. No spoilers.
So hop into your favorite spot.
Make yourself a grasshopper and enjoy the ride.
Hello there, Ryan.
Hello, Rob.
How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty well. How's your day going?
Well, I just told you about it earlier, so we'll just pass over that and just say I'm doing okay because I saw the Loobenfeld Decay.
Oh, yeah. And I have to say, I like this episode more than last week's episode, so
Yeah,
I'm happy with that.
Still not the strongest episode. I told you earlier that we had to ride through last episode and this episode, and then I looked ahead to like the rest of the season, and it's pretty good. The rest of the season.
We're going to get to some good stuff again, and
yep,
I'm looking forward to that because I wasn't my favorite episode, but compared to I was just happy that I enjoyed it more than last week's with the little temper tantrums they threw up on the stage last week. So,
well, for anybody new to our show, we are Theoretical Nonsense. We're the podcast that recaps, reviews, and deep dives facts from the Big Bang Theory, which we call IQ points. And this is Ryan's first time ever watching the Big Bang Theory, and I've seen it several times. And in addition to IQ points, we also keep tallies of how similar Ryan is to Sheldon.
So yeah, I've been told many times before that I'm a lot like Sheldon, and keeping tabs, I'm keeping a little spreadsheet of tallies of numbers, and right now I have 10 points for not being Sheldon and 11 for being Sheldon.
And you're keeping track of like everything, of all the reasons why too?
Yep. I have little notes in there too, and that's
okay,
I got them from.
Because I'm thinking that at the end of this, when we make it to the end of season 1, we should do like a little recap of what they all are, and maybe you could run down all of them.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Yeah. Things to look forward to, everybody, if you're still with us in like 10 more episodes.
Grand things are coming.
Yep. And a few other housekeeping things. We'll go over some emails and new reviews. I actually just checked our emails, and we still have nothing. But we have a couple new reviews.
Woo-hoo.
Did you check them out?
I haven't. I saw one the other day, but were there more? What were they?
There's another one that just came out on Thursday.
Oh, nice.
It's a 5-star review, and it's just a heart. A little heart emoji. Title is Heart, just a heart, and I love that.
Push the wrong button. I've got to look at this now. I'm looking it up.
And that is written by Sue Me, ... So I will not sue you because I love you now. Thank you for the 5-star review and your heart, apparently.
Yes,
I will take it and put it in a chest and hide it somewhere.
It's my heart now, forever.
God, I hope your name is Susan or something like that. And then you could go around and say, sue me everywhere you go.
That'd be like a good license plate tag, right? Sue me.
Yeah. Well, we also got another one on Sunday. Did you want to read that one out?
Yeah, I can read this one. And this is from Walls Wine Sippers. A must check out from last Sunday. In the famous words of Corey, never waste a boner. Just like those words of wisdom, this podcast is one you shouldn't waste. It's super entertaining to watch the episode beforehand and guess the things they are going to talk about. They provide lots of IQ points and perspective on lots of fun topics. If you like Big Bang, you will love this podcast. So thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, love the kind words and the heart icons. It's all
Yeah.
wonderful.
You shot me a text when this came out, and we're theorizing who it is. Do you think?
We have some guesses. We know a Corey, and we have mutual friends with said Corey.
Does our Corey say never waste a boner? I don't think he's
Uh,
ever said that to me. If it's the same Corey, I don't think he's ever said that to me.
I'm not sure he's ever said that to me, but he does have bits of wisdom, much like that, and I could see him saying that. So yeah, it would not surprise me to hear him say that. Never waste a boner. I guess that's a good mantra
So
to
good
live
life
on.
lesson. It's going to be the first thing I teach my child. Listen here,
Son,
son. In the famous words of Corey, never
never.
waste a boner.
Rob, he doesn't talk yet. Yeah, I'm teaching him a lesson though.
Are you questioning my parenting right now? Well, thanks for all the new reviews. We really appreciate it. And also, we have an Instagram account, so feel free to follow us. We are at Theoretical Nonsense Pod. We also have that email that nobody ever emails us to. So we're looking forward to getting any of those if anybody feels like it. Our email is theoreticalnonsensepod@gmail.com.
And I'm keeping an eye on it. There's always a risk that something might be lost in cyberspace or go to spam. But between me and you, I feel like we would catch things. But yeah, I'm keeping an eye on it. Every day, hoping somebody might reach out and say hello.
Yep, and I'm going to include all these in the show notes as well.
Yeah.
And
Well,
another shout out to John Kim Designs for our spanking new logo. Always looks great. Always enjoy staring at that.
yeah, it looks professional. It's awesome.
And housekeeping over, unless I missed
Awesome.
something.
That's all I have. Yeah. So on to the
Cool.
show.
On to the show,
On to the
Ryan. Take
show. Dun,
take
dun,
us
dun.
away.
So we are on season 1, episode 10. This is the Loobenfeld Decay. This aired March 24th, 2008, and we were talking about how the show just came back on after the previous episode, episode 9, because of the writer's strike back in 2008. And so we're getting out of that and kind of not rebooting, but restarting, getting back into weekly episodes. The director was Mark Sandrowski. I think that's a Sandrowski. It's a C.
That's how I've been pronouncing it
Sandrowski.
too.
Writers, Chuck Lorre, of course, Bill Prady, and Lee Aronson. Yeah, so again, we said that this is I kind of liked it more than last week's, but nothing too new going on. But it starts off with Sheldon and Leonard in their apartment lobby, and they come in carrying a bag of, well, we hear later that's chicken. And they grab the mail, and they're having a discussion on Terminator.
Yep, the timeline of the Terminator series.
Timeline of the Terminator series. And I did a little, I would say this is a partial IQ point because I was kind of confused. They were probably talking about Terminator 3. Terminator 4, starring Batman.
Terminator Salvation. I think in this episode they're actually talking about the show that just came out. It was a TV series.
They're
It was
talking about the show.
Yes, the Sarah Connor Chronicles. And that's where they're talking about, like, why would they go back and create a hot teenage Terminator, which was Summer Glau from Firefly.
That makes sense. I was going off
Terminator Salvation. Was that out at the time?
No, it came out the next year. I was going off of Terminator 3, and they had was it Christina Loken?
That's right.
Who was 24 years old at the time that came out. And so I was like, oh, maybe they were talking about her being 17. She could have played a 17-year-old at that time. And she was the bad guy. We see the Terminators go from the liquid metal designs and the muscular man. And then after Terminator 2, they shift to the female presence with the nanobots, right? But I never actually watched the Sarah Connor Chronicles, so I completely...
I
Just
did watch
regarding
it.
that. You did.
I
What were your
watched it,
thoughts?
yeah. I actually really enjoyed it. I think it only lasted like 2 seasons. It
Mm-hmm.
was in my world is the first introduction of Lena Headey as Sarah Connor. Most people might know her as Cersei Lannister from Game of Thrones,
Oh yeah.
but that was the first my first introduction of her. I'm sure she has a long career before that. And like I said, Summer Glau was the hot Terminator. She was in Firefly, and I also really enjoyed this because Shirley Manson was in this, and she's not an actress. She's actually the lead singer of Garbage, and I love
Oh,
Garbage.
that's nice. I had no idea. I'm gonna
Yeah, I
have to
was
go
like,
back and watch that now.
it was okay.
It's okay. It's
It was
okay.
okay. Yeah, that's all I got.
What was your favorite Terminator?
Oh man, if I had to pick one term in the entire in everything, even like now, like
Yeah, even the nows.
God, I'm gonna go with the first liquid metal one in Terminator 2.
Terminator
That
2.
it's so rare that a sequel outshines the original, and to me, Terminator 2 did that. And when you first see that liquid metal, because that came out like shoot, what was it? Early '90s, mid '90s. It came out like really early. So like when you see it on TV at that age, you're like, oh my god, this is awesome.
What the hell's going on when the T-1000 gets shot with like shotgun blasts and kind of blows up into liquid metal?
Yeah,
My mind was blown. It was amazing.
yeah, that one's my favorite.
And it also had some great actors in it. I love John Connor in that one. I remember wanting to be like him and like, how can I learn how to hack an ATM? I never learned how, but he was like my role model growing up, the anti-hero. And it also had the guy who played what Bud from Salute Your Shorts, the Nickelodeon camping show.
I remember, yeah. Every time I saw that, I always think of Salute Your Shorts.
Right? Yeah, the Terminator 2, I think that one was the best. I like some of the newer ones, but Terminator 2 just it it made me happy as a kid. So I'm gonna. And then the toys were awesome too. You had like I remember this one that you covered the robot in like fake human flesh, and when you played with it, it got battle damage, and you could rip the flesh off and like expose the robot underneath. And it was like horribly messy, but
I was gonna say, oh my god.
so much fun as a kid. Okay, so they were talking about that, and they're starting to walk upstairs, and they hear Penny singing. And Sheldon mentions that if cats could sing, they would probably not like her singing either, right?
Yeah,
That
that I think that's one of my favorite quotes of the entire series. I constantly think about it. I haven't had a chance to use it in real life because it's such a specific thing to say. If cats could sing, they'd hate it too.
they'd hate it too.
I think it's one of my favorite quotes.
And here we actually get a point for me being like Penny.
Because
I
you're a
like
terrible singer?
Oh yeah, I'm a terrible singer, but I love to sing. And quite specifically, I enjoy singing Rent. In fact, I remember when I was at my MFA program, my English writing residency, I'd go for like a week here and there. And one time I stayed with some friends at a hotel, and she dealt with it very, very classy. But I'd wake up in the morning and be excited to be at residency, ready for the day. And so, yeah, I would wake up and be really excited for the day, ready to start my residency. And I would sing some Rent. More specifically, I would sing Mimi's song, Take Me Out Tonight. I want to go
The
out
same
tonight.
one.
Yeah, that song. And my friend who was sang with me just dealt with it, but kind of like, Ryan, you sound terrible. And it's also like 6 in the morning and I haven't had coffee yet. Please just calm down. But again, Penny singing Rent is 1 point for not being Sheldon because that is definitely me.
I'm going to say the end goal of all this tally is hoping that you're not like Sheldon.
That's what I'm hoping for, but I'm still trying to be honest with myself and honest with our listeners. So I'm going both ways, but definitely sing Rent and sing Mimi song quite frequently in the mornings.
My only
So,
familiarity with Rent is the movie that came out in like the early 2000s. So I had to look up who Mimi was. I was like, is that a big role? I actually really didn't know. But
oh
apparently it's like the lead female character, right?
yeah, I love Rent. It's one of my favorite musicals. I grew up instead of like going to sporting events. My mom would take me to musical theater. We had tickets like season tickets in the summer to go like once a week to a different musical. So I grew up with a bunch and love Phantom of the Opera, Les Mis, and Rent like most of all. But Rent definitely Mimi is the neighbor to the main characters, who are two friends who are uh, they're living. I think they're squatting. It's been a while since I've seen it, but they're kind of squatting in an apartment, and they have an electrical cord coming in the window, and that's how they get electricity. And Mimi lives like down the hall, and she's a heroin addict, and she comes in and she has a song about "Will you light my candle?" And the candle is so that she can heat up her heroin and shoot up. And the main guy tries to get her off it, and they kind of start to fall in love, and Mimi comes back, and this song that Penny is singing is Mimi saying, I want to go out and hang out with you tonight. I want to go out and party. And it's her being romantically interested, but also kind of this free spirit. However, the guy she's kind of hitting on has lost his previous girlfriend when the girlfriend found out that they were both HIV positive. Uh, the ex girlfriend or old girlfriend killed herself, and so Mimi's like, let's go out and party. He's like, leave me alone. I am brooding in my sorrow and anger and anguish. And then they kind of build a relationship from there. I know a lot about Rent. I love it. I love it.
And it's your favorite one of all time.
It's up there. I love Les Miserables too. I have both the movie versions of both of them, and then I also have like the Broadway Blu-ray versions of each of them as well. So I like them both.
Nice.
So no spoilers with Rent, but that is kind of the premise and what the song is about. That she wants to go out and party, and she's a bit of a wildcat. She's kind of a very energetic girl and very suitable for Penny. And so what we get is Penny comes downstairs and meets Sheldon and Leonard, who are kind of trying to run away so that they don't have to encounter her or talk about her singing. But she meets them and explains that she is auditioned for a part of Mimi and didn't get the role, but the woman who was supposed to take the role has dropped out, and she's going to, like, for one night play the starring role of Mimi, and she invites them, and they say they can't go. Well, first of all, they say that they're busy picking up mail and throwing away some chicken. They're trying to explain why they were running away from her, right?
Yeah.
And
Such an awkward encounter, like, duh, just mailing some mail and throwing away some chicken.
throw away some chicken. And I love Sheldon's expression when Leonard looks at him like, okay, throw the chicken away. And Sheldon's like, no, I don't want to.
Please don't make me do this.
And he kind of like starts to put it in the garbage and finally goes through with it. They, however, well, Leonard, I guess, chimes in and says, we cannot make it. We have a symposium on molecular positronium. And Sheldon goes, no, that's next week. And Leonard's like, no, it's this evening. We can't make it because we have the symposium. And that becomes the heart of the episode, this lie that he has spewed or said to Penny's to get out of hearing her sing because he doesn't like her singing. Now, I have a little bit of an IQ point on this, but did you do any looking into what positronium is?
I did look into it. So it's my first IQ point too. But before we get into that, like I found this whole situation a little bit peculiar just because the way I look at it is we we've established that Leonard really likes Penny, like regardless. And I remember when I was younger and I had a crush on a girl, it didn't matter what she did. I would want to be part of her world. I would have gone, even if she sounded like shit singing. It's like I want to be the guy in the audience with the flowers. You know, it's like that. That's what I didn't really get. Is like I thought you were really into her, so you'd think that you would just go.
I agree. There are a couple things that are a little out of character in this episode, and one is, I would have been the guy who would have been there with flowers too, and like I can't stand the singing, but I'm happy to be here anyways, right?
Yeah, I mean,
And
even if Penny sucks, maybe the other people are better.
right, you can still make it work.
But then
But
again, it's like a one night show, so it's like, is there really going to be that much talent there?
that's good too, because if it's one night, then it's like, oh, I just have to sit through this hour and a half and then it's over, right? I don't have to go to any other ones.
Yeah,
But at the same time, I can see the reverse of this in that Leonard, it's probably healthy to have, what are the words, boundaries. That if he's really not into it, being able to, I guess he lies about it, but being able to say, I'm not interested in that. This is something that I support you, but don't want to do. That could be healthy too. It's just not something that I would imagine myself doing if I had a crush on a girl. And the other thing, going up is, Sheldon caring so much about the lie. I kind of thought Sheldon would be more inclined not to lie at all.
yeah,
And
he
as
would
he
have just
goes,
interjected and just say, "No, I'm not interested."
yeah. And I didn't give myself a point for being like Sheldon in the note that he doesn't like the lie that, or the discussion of the lie that becomes the episode, because I would be more inclined to say I don't like lying at all. And it turns out Sheldon's okay with lying. He just has to make it the perfect lie. And I'm like, I'm not like that. I don't like having any lies at all. But yeah, it is kind of interesting that there is some character issues that I don't quite agree on, but you know,
Yeah, now that you mention that, like looking forward ahead in the series, Sheldon is a very honest person. So this
mm-hmm,
is really out of character for him. So his characters does change a little bit moving forward.
some interesting stuff to look forward to. Yeah. So what'd you get for molecular positronium?
I got a little bit of stuff, probably not that in depth. I just kept it kind of general because this really deep dives into a lot of stuff in science. Like, holy crap! No wonder there's a whole symposium regarding it. Probably
Yeah.
multiple chapters of this symposium. We're gonna have to go to a lot of them just to figure out what's going on and
And
to
it's kind
talk
of my
about it.
understanding too that a lot of this stuff with antimatter, positronium is antimatter, that it's theoretical and that scientists are still learning about it. So we don't completely understand what or how it is, just that it is, and that we're, and so if people with the PhDs are still figuring it out, yeah, what are we gonna, what
We
options do
have
we
no
have for
chance in
understanding?
hell.
We have no
Yeah.
chance in hell. There we go. That's what I was looking for. So what did you
Well,
find?
so like Ryan said, positronium is antimatter. Every elementary particle has a corresponding antiparticle, which is antimatter. Protons have antiprotons, neutrons have antineutrons, and electrons have antielectrons, which are commonly known as positrons. Particles of antimatter have a charge opposite of their original components. So, for example, positrons have a charge of +1, while electrons have a -1 electric charge. And some definitions that I found too: positronium, a short lived hydrogen like atom composed of an electron and a positron, also known as the inverted electron. Arising as a positron is slowed down in matter and captured by the electron. I guess there's also a difference between a positronium and a positron, which I didn't really get. I have the definitions, but I don't really get it.
I was taking positronium as the atom that's created for a moment when the electron and positron connect. I could be wrong on that, but that's what I was taking it as.
Maybe that's what it is.
It's the molecule that's like hydrogen. And it makes sense that hydrogen is basically a proton in the nucleus and an electron circling it. And positronium would be one electron and one positron with a plus one and a negative one. And like right before they collide, and apparently when they collide, they annihilate each other and become energy. But for like a moment, they're a little atom-like molecule, and since it has a negative and positive one charge, it's like hydrogen, but it's a lot smaller and a lot less mass than an actual atom because protons are technically a lot larger than electrons.
Yeah, I found something like that too, where when there actually is like a collision of the opposite forces, there actually is like an event that occurs. And that event apparently is the production of gamma rays.
Oh.
So that's how they created the Incredible Hulk.
And that's how the Hulk was made. In fact,
Yeah.
this symposium was hosted by Bruce Banner, I believe.
Featuring Tony Stark.
Oh
Weird.
yeah. I do like that. I actually looked up symposium. I googled symposium on molecular positronium, and the only thing that came up was Big Bang Theory. So I don't know if there's an actual symposium on this.
Okay. It was a made up event.
It made up event. But yeah,
That's
so
all I
out
had
of
on it.
that's
Yeah.
about all I have too. If you want to chime in with any knowledge you have of positronium, positrons, antimatter, shoot us an email because love to learn about it. But it is kind of above our. We might need PhDs to understand it
Yeah,
fully.
definitely the exact opposite of the field that I'm in.
Yeah, I was gonna say yeah. English doesn't have many gamma rays or
Nope.
annihilations, I guess. Man, my field's really boring. Alright, so Penny finally leaves, and Sheldon is just like distraught. He's like, wow, Leonard, are you a sociopath? And Leonard's kind of like, if I was a sociopath, are you worried about your safety? And Sheldon's like, no, you probably would have killed me by now, so I'm safe. But he is still very upset that Leonard was able to make this lie, this compelling lie, without any change to his personality. His like, what did he say? His heart didn't raise. He didn't start to sweat.
Yeah. I
Uh,
wrote the quote down because I did an IQ point on this.
I,
Um, did you too?
I not online, but on sociopathy.
Me
So
too. Yes.
nice.
I was telling my wife about this, and she's like really into true crime. And I
Uh
think this might be the only episode that she'd be interested in because we talk about like to jump ahead in what we're going to talk about in the episode is I did a lot of research on drug addiction too.
huh.
And there's also like the sociopath versus psychopath and stuff like that. So I was like, oh, I might actually tune into this episode. She won't though. But anyways, the quote that he said was, "You did it so casually. No rapid breathing, no increase in perspiration. So lack of a physiological response while lying is a characteristic of a violent sociopath." And now we dive into what are the telltale signs of a sociopath. Would you like to take us off?
I'll start us off. I was just thinking too that I remember as a kid I watched this show. I cannot remember the name of it, but it was about a guy who was clearly a sociopath, and he was kind of sabotaging a company, I believe, and everybody had to do a lie detector test to figure out who was stealing information or sabotaging stuff. And he set up the tests, like he knew how they worked to measure like heart rates and perspiration, basically monitor your vitals so that when you do a lie detector test, it knows that if you're lying, then your pulse races or whatever. And what he did was put a tack in his shoe, and to screw up the lie detector test, every time he told a lie or told the truth to screw things up, he would push his foot down on the tack to cause himself pain, which would cause his stats and vitals to change to cause the lie detector test to be completely invalid. And I was like, whoa, I had no idea you could do that. But I believe it's still like if you're really that, what's the word, dedicated to fooling a lie detector test, there are ways around it. You just have to be ready to cause yourself a little pain. So, anyways, that brings us to sociopathy. And I went with mayoclinic.org and also a little bit with healthline.com. And something I know about this, I write horror stories and scary stories, and that goes a lot with like slasher films and serial killers. And technically, the DSM, we're on DSM-5 now, the basically manual that psychologists use to diagnose psychological issues such as autism is a new one, OCD, obsessive compulsive person or obsessive compulsive disorders, anxiety disorders, stuff like that. Uh, this is the manual that they use to diagnose this stuff. And technically, sociopathy and psychopathy are not listed in it. They are not technical terms. They get used all over, but in this manual, they are not uh, delegated. They are not clarified. They are just kind of part and assumed to be part of another disorder called antisocial personality disorder. And this is what the real term is for sociopathy. That if you're looking for actual psychological terminology, this would be more official. In that when we make distinctions between sociopathy and psychopathy, that's more kind of maybe pop culture bleeding into what we understand psychology to be. But for antisocial personality disorder, we get some tall tale signs of a person who shows no regard for right or wrong, somebody who ignores the rights and feelings of others, someone who shows no remorse, someone who is persistent at lying, someone who uses charm and manipulation for their own personal gain, someone who's pretty arrogant and impulsive. They can usually be hostile. And I think the key thing is they lack empathy. And I always consider this type of person who doesn't see other humans as real, that they're all just kind of pawns or playthings to make this individual feel better. And that if they hurt people or they cause pain, it doesn't matter because no one actually matters except them. Um, and they typically take a lot of risk and fail to learn from their actions. And what we see with this is that, we typically think of sociopaths or people with this disorder as serial killers because of Hollywood movies, but that's not necessarily the case, that these are just individuals who are kind of abusive and manipulative and are able to pass off these lies for their own personal gain, even if it doesn't mean killing other people. I've also saw from healthline.com that there's no real clear indication of what causes it. Some thoughts to be on genes, but also changes in the brain during the while the brain is developing. And I've heard different stories about sometimes when people get hit in the head, it can kind of change their understanding of right and wrong and morality. So some of it's brain development, but we don't have a clear idea of what causes such psychological dispositions as antisocial personality disorder. And that's what I found.
Yeah, I actually found some very similar things too. It's funny that we actually found different sites. I was on WebMD and MHA-EM.org, which is the Mental Health America of eastern Missouri. So I found very similar things, but it actually kind of did go a little bit further into how or where this comes from.
Hmm.
For the most part, I was interested in the differences between a sociopath and a psychopath, which apparently, as you said, it was the same thing. It's like these are very vague terms that aren't really clinically real terms.
Defined
And
like specifically into categories, right? They're
yeah, and it is ASPD, which is the antisocial personality disorder. So they do have some things in common. So the things that they have in common is those with that disorder have no regard for others' rights or feelings. They lack empathy and remorse for wrongdoings, and they have the need to exploit and manipulate others for personal gain. So the biggest difference that I've learned is that in more recent research, it seems that psychopaths is more of a genetic thing, and sociopathy is more of an environmental
oh,
thing. Where if you're, I guess, if you're a psychopath, in quote psychopath, it's more of a genetic thing, that it's all something in your DNA, because that usually associates to more of a brain disorder where there's something kind of missing in their genetic code.
nature
Whereas,
versus nurture type thing,
yeah,
right?
whereas sociopathy, it's more of environmental in the event, meaning that it's caused from abuse or some sort of trauma, and that's what creates a sociopath.
Interesting. I've heard before, I didn't actually document this, but I've heard two things before that have stuck with me through the years. One, that more men are typically diagnosed with antisocial personality disorders, basically being diagnosed as psychopath or sociopath. And it's this big question over whether or not more men actually are inclined to have this disorder and be less sympathetic than women, or if women are just better liars, because technically part of having the disorder is being manipulative and lying, which means that somebody with this disorder might lie about having it and say, no, I really do care about other people, in which case they aren't going to be diagnosed. It's kind of catch 22, right?
Oh, I never thought of it like that.
And so we you know yes, have a pretty small understanding of it and actual diagnoses of how many people might have it. The other thing I saw with this or heard before was because they have no empathy and are manipulative, uh so there have been studies with children who are displaying signs of this disorder, and the notion is that negative reinforcement, basically spankings or punishment for misbehaving, does not work on these people. In fact, it just infuriates them because they feel like they have been wronged and there's no reason for why they are being punished. And so yeah, studies have said that spanking a kid with this disorder who has just manipulated or lied their way into something it isn't going to help things. However, what they found was using positive reinforcement for kind of I don't want to say fake, but almost like a manufactured empathy is beneficial. So basically, whenever somebody who's displaying this disorder or a child is displaying disorder uh, shows empathy or decides I want to share or shows like they're acting like they care for somebody, you give them a piece of candy and say, "Good job, you did wonderful." Then they start to learn that that behavior gets them better things in life, and then they end up not being as manipulative.
Very cool.
So yeah,
Good to know.
but I guess this goes for the argument of raising kids that positive reinforcement may be better than negative reinforcement in a lot of ways.
Yeah, we've actually been looking into that because with the kid on the way, we have two more months.
2 more months, it's
Crazy.
coming.
2 more months. Our little boy is coming, and we kind of like we're in that wonderful stage of excitement that is slowly transitioning into terror because it's all becoming so real now. But anyways, we started looking into like like punishments and everything, because you hear all the stories about the terrible twos and like the adolescents and everything like that.
Yeah.
More and more research is supporting what you just said, but for everyone, that negative reinforcement or like spanking and or just some physical punishment never truly works.
Mm-hmm.
So
And
it's not, yeah, it's not a very great, what's the word, punishment learning thing. Or
learning, coping,
oh. Yeah,
child raising technique or something.
there it is. Yes. Yeah, because a lot of that stuff can create some sociopaths because
Yeah.
especially if you do it a lot too. Like sociopaths are born from the environment, some sort of trauma or abuse.
And I still remember spankings as a kid that, I don't feel like maybe I am a sociopath and don't know it, but I feel like they were completely wrong. I'm like, I got punished uh, for standing up for what I believed in. Or it's like the times in school where, somebody's hitting you or whatever, bullying you, and you finally punch back, and you're the one who gets in trouble. And have you ever had that happen?
I I remember not that, but I do remember some. Well, okay, no,
No, right.
I won't go into that story. It's a long story that I won't go into.
But yeah, I always feel like if I'm the one who finally defends myself, I'm always scared that I'm going to be the one who gets in trouble. And I'm like, wait a minute, I shouldn't be getting in trouble for sticking up for myself or protecting myself. And I think that's made me bitter at some authority figures throughout my life that, wait a minute, if they're going to punish me unjustifiably, unrightfully, well, I'm going to act out more against them.
Well, let's find out if you actually are a sociopath. With our accumulated IQ points, I feel like I can diagnose you.
Yeah, it's no
So,
PhD, but
but you know what? Whatever. But here's a list of consistent behavior patterns in sociopaths. Let's see how close it is to either of us. Lack of empathy for others, impulsive behavior, attempting to control others with threats or aggression, using intelligence, charm, or charisma to manipulate others, not learning from mistakes or punishment, lying for personal gain, showing a tendency to physical violence in fights, generally superficial relationships, sometimes stealing or committing other crimes, threatening suicide to manipulate without intention to act, sometimes abusing drugs or alcohol, trouble with responsibilities such as a job or paying bills. So those are the consistent behavior patterns of a sociopath.
Oh no.
Oh, how many of those are you? Oh. How often do you lie for personal gain?
Well, we've already talked about that. I am terrible at lying. I don't feel comfortable with it. So, it's part of why I feel weird about the Sheldon or in this episode that I feel like he probably wouldn't want to lie at all. And that had he gone that route, I would have given myself a point because I don't like lying. I might stretch the truth a little bit so I don't hurt feelings. And that comes up a little bit later, like little white lies. But I don't lie. Although, as far as manipulation goes, and I don't know, this might not count, but I've been reading about this thing called, I'm going to bring it up really quickly. Something called verbal judo.
So you use your words to manipulate is feels like a dirty word, but
Right?
you manipulate others to do what you want.
It's considered the gentle art of persuasion, and the book was by George Thompson and Jerry Jenkins. And I've read snippets and posts and have had discussions with people. With COVID, this was a big thing with teachers, working with individuals who were frustrated or not vaccinated. And, the notion is that we can get angry with somebody who's not vaccinated, but that doesn't necessarily resolve the issue. And remaining calm and persuasive can help you find a solution that works for everybody. You as a teacher, I'm not allowed to have students join the class who aren't vaccinated. The school has a policy that you have to be vaccinated. That's more common now, but when things were starting last year, starting to get back together, it was a big thing. And yeah, teachers were kind of trained in this a little bit, that remaining calm and understanding that people come from all backgrounds and they might be frustrated. And if they're angry, it's not necessarily because they're mad at you, but mad at whatever's going on in their life. And manipulation sounds negative, but it is manipulation to some extent, to persuade and say, you know what? What's the solution and how can we work towards it? I don't want to fight. I'm not going to get into an altercation with you. I'm going to work around this to find what best suits me. But I guess it's what best suits everybody, though. So
Is that really manipulation, though? I
I
feel
don't
like that's
know.
just finding a solution. I think
But
that's
if
because you're not like or are you like verbally judoing them to like do what you want?
right, it's a very
Is
fine line.
You know what? I have a great example of mental judo or verbal judo. I got my sucker friend Ryan to start a podcast with me.
I don't know how that even happened.
Gotcha.
Oh no. I don't even like podcasts or television.
I didn't even own a TV until this.
What's happening? And I've heard this with altercations at bars too, that by avoiding actual physical violence or brawls will not help anything or anyone. And no matter how mad you are, if you actually get into a physical altercation, you're going to be charged with, you could be charged with assault. And that dispersing or getting out of the situation as quickly as possible is very important. And one way is by, what's the word? de de-escalating,
Well,
or
yeah.
yeah, and by manipulating the situation in the dialogue or the discussion, so that if they're getting angry, say something that might confuse them, or a joke that throws them off a little bit, and it usually disperses the conflict so that you get away without having to even deal with it.
Well, in a situation like a bar fight, I feel like a sociopath would probably like they are known for having impulsive behavior and have a tendency of physical violence. So you'd think that they would probably get into the fight
Exactly, and that's where I would
or
say,
convince somebody else to fight for them,
there you
pretty
go,
much.
that you
Yeah,
have
that's what
somebody
it would be.
else. You have the person fight themselves.
There it is. That's how to be a sociopath.
So yeah, I think that I'm not very arrogant. I'm not impulsive. I'm not hostile. So I think for the most part, I'm not a psychopath, sociopath. But I do like the idea of persuasion and working together and using your words to find better solutions. And I think that there's a fine line between that and manipulation. How about you? Do you
Well,
meet any of the qualifications?
I honestly don't think like I feel like I'm empathetic towards others. At least I feel like I am. I don't have impulsive behavior. I'm very structured. I don't. I don't think. I mean, lying for personal gain. I think that's kind of like tiptoeing around like the whole like manipulation thing. It's like, well, I don't really lie. I guess it's not really an outright lie. I may like withhold some information.
Mm-hmm.
I guess that's technically lying. So I guess there's that. Like, but if anyone from work is listening, I tell the truth all the time.
Always tell the truth. Of course, yeah. If any of my students listen, I've always told you the truth 100% of the
Yeah.
time.
Yep. Don't steal things. Haven't committed a crime. Don't threaten suicide to manipulate others. I
Oh,
mean, so,
I have done
I'll,
that before. But to
oh.
be fair, there's a whole story behind it. I was in elementary school, and I have this really big thing about when people say, well, life's not fair, or get used to it, that it undermines and belittles the person who is complaining, and it doesn't take them seriously, and that is a problem in itself. But when I was a kid, well, it was like fourth grade or something, I had a student teacher, and the actual teacher is like good friends with my family. In fact, I'm still friends with some of these people on Facebook and stuff. So, really good people. But the student teacher didn't know me that well, and didn't know my family, and didn't know I had a very dark sense of humor. But she assigned books, and I got one that I didn't want to read. And I go, I don't want to read this one. I want to read the one my friends are reading. And she goes, well, you have to read that one. I go, that's not fair. And her response was, well, life's not fair. And I go, well, what if I kill myself? And pulled out a pair of those, skull scissors that kids use that you can't actually cut yourself with, and held it to my wrist. And like, she got flustered and was like, just read the book. But then it like immediately went and had my parents called, and it became a thing. And when my parents heard it and the actual teacher heard about it, they all laughed. And they're like, that's just Ryan being Ryan. And of course, after she said, just read it, I did read it because I wasn't serious. But, in my point of view, it was like, you can't just tell somebody, well, life's unfair, do what you don't want to do. You have to actually give them some acceptance and say that their point of view is valid.
Yeah, especially at that age, too. In the fourth grade, you're very like... You don't understand these things. You can't really control your emotions and everything.
So there was that one.
The craziest part of the story is that your teachers all understood your dark sense of humor at the fourth grade. I can't even comprehend that.
I remember writing a short story about a giant zombie that was eating people, and he got blown up, and there was decaying flesh flying all over people. And the teacher's like, Ryan, this was supposed to be a nonfiction story. I'm like, oh, oops.
I'm actually looking into a crystal ball, and I saw your future.
Dun, dun, dun. It will happen. Okay, so I think that was a great discussion on
that's a great IQ point.
Yeah, great. Deep dive.
So then Sheldon does exactly what I would do and pull the chicken out of the trash.
I had a question here. If you would have an issue with grabbing the chicken out of the trash, I feel like it was
wrapped up really nice. It was at the top of the trash too.
I was gonna say
George Costanza eating the straight up eating out of the trash at the party.
I have to say I've done that before too, but I feel like it's different if. This was years ago. I'm not even going to say where it was, but I have served food before. And when you're watching the customers and they have a plate and they don't touch the plate because they've been drinking all night or whatever, and then you're supposed to throw it away or you put the plate on the trash bin or whatever, I've had a chicken finger or two from those plates.
Yeah, I've done that before too. It's like completely.
It's like I've watched them the whole time. I know they didn't even sneeze on it.
Yeah, when I was bussing tables, serving food and stuff like that, it's like, man, they didn't even touch this. And I'm like, working in a restaurant, they work you to death. Like sometimes, like you skip breaks, you do doubles and everything like that. It gets to a point where it's like, I will eat anything.
Yeah, and you're looking at this food like all day, and you're like, it looks so good. I just want a piece, and it happens. I don't judge anybody for that, and I'm not judging Sheldon for pulling it out of the trash because I've been there, done that.
Especially if it's fried chicken too. I can't let that go to waste. That's like my favorite.
Oh man, I definitely. Now, if it was curry, I probably would have left it in the garbage can.
Well, if it was in a container and in a plastic bag, then that's multiple barriers right there. Our listeners are thinking we're disgusting right now.
And we're done listening to this podcast.
And unsubscribe. Shit.
Don't judge us.
Please don't judge me.
Don't judge me.
It was years ago, I swear.
I'm a better person now. I'm not lying. All right, so that's the opening, and we open up back into the apartment. It's 2 a.m., and Sheldon's knocking on Leonard's door saying he has a problem with the lie they told Penny.
Side
And
note, they actually, Sheldon, this, I believe this is the first time we see his three knocks. Knock, knock, Leonard. Knock, knock, Leonard. Knock, knock, Leonard.
I didn't
You
even notice
keep
that, but that's a key
keep
thing.
that keep on watching.
I'm
The
going
thing
to
fun things for you to see in the future.
key item is knocking. And there's a star there. Leonard's like, this has to wait till the morning. And I did kind of a partial IQ here. I don't think it gathers enough potential for a full IQ, but Leonard does get up and Sheldon goes, I've disturbed you from an REM cycle. We should talk about this in the morning. And I did a little bit into this because I was a little confused on what he meant by REM cycle. And I took it more as a sleep cycle than an REM cycle because technically REM. Did you do any research on this?
I didn't, but I'm familiar with the concept.
Yeah, REM is rapid eye movement, right? And that
Yep.
is the part of your sleep cycle where you're dreaming, and your eyes are basically moving around in your head because your mind's going. Um, and I've been interested in this because I do have sleep paralysis sometimes, where I'll wake up and kind of have a waking dream and can't really move, and I'll see shadow figures. Or one time I saw it was a badger on my chest of drawers, knocking all my stuff over, and like I woke up and I was married at the time, and I told my wife, "There's something in here," and then I didn't want to scare her. So she's like, "What is it?" I'm like, "Nothing." And then I'm like, "I think there's a badger in here." And she's like, "Ryan, you fell asleep. I've been awake the whole time. There's no badger in here." I'm like, "Okay, I was dreaming." So it doesn't make logical sense, but yeah, it's kind of the stage where your mind's very active. However, REM typically happens at the end of a sleep cycle. That there's three stages of non-REM. The light sleep, where like you're kind of dozing off and oftentimes you don't even know you're asleep, and then kind of you're starting to fall asleep and you're in this light sleep, but your temperature and your heart beat is kind of dropping into a slumber. And then the third stage is the like delta deep sleep, delta waves, and this is where most of the rejuvenation and health not health issues, but where your immune system's like fixing things, right? And then after that, you go into the REM dreaming sleep. And REM is apparently really important because this is where your memories are starting to get solidified in your brain, and your brain's kind of working out problems. And we see that when people drink alcohol or don't get enough REM sleep, that their memories and their minds kind of start to, what's the word, have
Merge.
problems, maybe not problems, but suffer a little bit, and their like judgment isn't as good the next day, or their memories might not be as great. So a lot of suggestions on not drinking too much alcohol or not drinking right before bed, because it can mess with kind of your memory and development of your mind. And we also see that although there's these four cycles, that in a typical night's sleep, we go through multiple of these, that we go through the stages and then kind of wake up and then go back into another deep sleep and then kind of start to wake up again. And I've heard before that before electricity, people would go to bed like when it got dark, and then would wake up in the middle of the night and then go and like walk around in the middle of the night and talk to their family, talk to their neighbors, and then go back to sleep for the rest of the evening. So it's pretty typical to go through multiple stages during one night, and that you might wake up, if you wake up constantly in the middle of the night, it might be because you've gone through one stage and then you're going to go back through another stage.
Yeah, I remember learning about this. I remember for like a long time, people thought that REM cycles were in increments of 3 hours, but now we're learning that it's actually 90 minutes. That all these steps go through within 90 minutes, and then you fall into deep sleep. And that's actually why when you dream, you have multiple dreams throughout the night, is because you're constantly going through a different cycle.
Yeah, I'm waking up and then going back in. And this came from Medical News Today, but same thing that was about 90-minute increments, right?
Yeah.
Which is interesting because if a dream can seem like it's going on forever and it's only 5 minutes long, then how long are dreams actually that we're not remembering?
Yeah,
Interesting.
apparently we actually yeah, like college psychology. I learned this like years ago that apparently like you have like lots and lots of dreams throughout the night, but you really only remember the ones that are like the most recent, like the ones right before you wake up.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I love talking about dreams, but again, only a partial IQ because we're still learning about sleep. But I was kind of curious why he called it an REM cycle as opposed to a sleep cycle, because my thought was that REM is only that last stage.
Maybe because of the whole like sleep paralysis thing that you were saying, because if you are disturbed during REM cycle, that actually is when your body kind of like seizes itself or like goes through that paralysis, so you don't move around and you're in that deep sleep. And if you are disorient, or if you are awoken during it, you are a lot more disoriented.
Hmm.
So Sheldon probably thought, oh, I disturbed your REM cycle, so you're not going to be able to think straight, you're not going to be able to have this intelligent conversation with me. That's how I took it as.
That makes sense. That makes sense. I was thinking more that the third stage, that delta wave deep sleep, would be the harder one to wake up from. But I think you're right that people are kind of, what's the word, confused, disoriented when they wake up from a deep dream that they're having. Like, I was
Yep.
about to win the princess and get the treasure, and you woke me up.
Yeah, I was fighting a
I was
dragon.
fighting a dragon. Where the hell did that dragon go? I swear there was a badger on the chest of drawers.
It was a dragon badger.
Dragon badger. He's come to get me again.
Yeah.
So yeah, they are discussing the lie, and Sheldon is upset because he thinks that Penny's going to be able to see through the lie. And Leonard has to explain that he told the lie because he doesn't want to hurt Penny's feelings. And I did a little bit more research on etiquette and telling white lies. Did you do anything on this?
I didn't.
You
I'm
didn't?
looking forward to hearing this one.
Okay, so I saw several websites on etiquette experts. There's DianeGotsman.com. I saw ClissEtiquette.com. Some quotes from a woman named Emily Post on etiquette. Uh, and kind of two things. One, if you are telling a friend or peer or coworker of something that may not be favorable, uh, the question is, do you just not tell them, or is not telling them considered a little white lie? Is it better to avoid lies completely? And there's kind of this conception that, yeah, it's admirable to never tell a lie, but there's a difference between etiquette and manners. And sometimes stretching the truth or little white lies are better manners, and better manners trump etiquette. And so, if you have to tell somebody something unfavorable, that might be etiquette. Mostly, the notion is you don't want to let them embarrass themselves. And so, if you think you're going to save them from embarrassment, you should do it in private. You should do it before it becomes an issue. You should try to say, according to DianeScotsman.com, say, I know you would want to know. So you're not saying it because you have power over them, but because you're trying to help them, and that you're not making fun of them, but because you're supporting them. And always be sure not to gossip. That it's, if you're going to tell the white lie, or if there is an issue, that you don't talk behind somebody's back about it. That you either tell them up front or you don't discuss it. Um, and yeah, I like the quote from Emily Post that says, etiquette is knowing what fork to use at a dinner table. Manners is not saying anything when your neighbor doesn't know what to use. And so just because somebody did something wrong doesn't mean you should point it out necessarily. That you should try to make people feel comfortable and feel good about themselves. And that's better than necessarily being proper etiquette. And in this case, I think that telling the lie, I don't know. I probably, again, we mentioned at the beginning of the episode that we're the type who would probably show up anyways, even if we didn't like the singing. But telling a lie might be better than saying, hey, Penny, you suck at singing.
I wouldn't say that my actions about going to, and seeing her singing are necessarily noble. It's for my own personal benefit because I like the girl. So I wouldn't necessarily it's manners nor etiquette. It's
That's
more
because
like
you're a
I want to be.
manipulative psychopath.
That's true. It's a sociopath. Get it right.
Oh, yeah.
Well, this etiquette and manners thing, like that's actually really good advice. I might actually have to implement that on Tuesday because some shit's going down at work. So I need
no.
to
Dun, dun, dun.
I gotta nip that shit in the bud.
Yeah.
But yeah, good to know. Like I'm gonna put this into practice.
I'm terrible at lying, so the best way I can tell the truth, the kindest way, and again, that verbal judo stuff, avoiding the lies for me is always best. And also, I feel like I'm bad at lying, so people can just tell right away when I'm lying, and there's no point in trying to get away with it because they're gonna know. So
That's true. Yeah, I actually really don't lie either. I'm actually a terrible liar, which my wife loves about me. Like, she'll kind of just see me make like an awkward face or kind of like do like a little smirk or something like that. She's just like, "What's going on?" And I just can't lie.
Nothing. I'm
Yeah.
not lying.
Yeah.
This reminds me of. Have you ever read the book To Kill a Mockingbird?
It was a long time ago. That's like high school.
I love that book, and my mind definitely works with stories. So I remember stories that I read like long ago. Even if there's no real reason or purpose to remember it, but there's a part in it where the main family has a boy over from school, and I think part of the reason I remember this is the boy. I remember some discussion that he probably has like hookworm or tapeworm, some sort of parasite, because he doesn't have enough money to wear shoes and he works on a farm and most likely contracted a parasite, and he's really thin. And they have him over for dinner, and I believe he puts syrup on everything. And the main character, Scout, is about to say, "What the hell are you doing?" And her, it is technically their nanny servant, who's actually more like their mom because their mom's not in the picture, stops her and says, "Scout, he's your guest. Don't ask questions." And so it's this notion that it's not proper etiquette to put maple syrup on everything you're eating for dinner, or like usually dinner at all. But if you're going to have a guest over, you don't ask questions. They are your guests. You take care of them and you have proper manners. It's etiquette to have manners and treat them with the utmost respect. And I'm like, that's a great memory for me. That's how I want to be.
So, and I defy what you just said. Maple glazed pork chops.
Oh, boom. Yeah. I was going to say like maple on ham, maple
salmon too.
Stuffs. Ooh, salmon.
Maple glaze, like a maple bourbon glazed salmon.
Ooh. Maybe I don't think
looks like To Kill a Mockingbird is ahead of its time.
Yes, it is. We have not been using maple syrup to its fullest extent.
No, you don't just put that on pancakes. You don't just put that in little droplets in your McGriddle. You can go on everything.
Now, here's a question: do you do straight up maple syrup, 100%, or do you do like the maple syrup flavored syrup?
100%.
100%. I love it. Some people say that it tastes too.
I grew up with like Log Cabin and like Aunt Jemima and stuff like that, but
I'm not going to say there's anything wrong with it.
There's nothing. I mean, they're still good. I still liked it. They have better pour tops than the other ones.
True. And
So yeah,
especially if
like
you ever have like the cask aged maple syrup, like aged in whiskey barrels. Oh wow!
I got some in the fridge right now.
Oh, nice.
I'm gonna put that on my steak later.
Pour it on everything. That's your son's second lesson. First lesson is never waste the boner. Second lesson, maple syrup on everything.
Kid, you're gonna be just fine now.
It's gonna work out. All right, so yeah, Sheldon's like she's gonna see through this fly. If she goes online and goes to this link and downloads the PDF, she'll find out that the symposium is not on that day. And then
Did you go to the website?
I didn't. Was it? Is it
I
real?
did. Yeah. Well, I mean, it was once
Once
a
real.
long time ago when this episode was out. It's a Warner Brothers landing page, so I'm really curious of what they actually had on there. If they actually did have like a fake
Symposium
stuff of symposium on there.
I love it when campaigns do stuff like that, where they're like have a phone number or something, or sometimes like in a movie you'll see a phone number that's not a 555, and if you call
Yeah.
it, it will be like part of the movie, and you'll get some
Yeah,
of
I
those.
love that stuff too.
Right?
I forgot to mention a couple episodes ago when Sheldon was playing with his wallet. Do you remember that? It was
Yeah,
a couple, it
yeah.
was a few weeks ago. That he was like something wallet.com and stuff like that. That was another landing page too.
Nice. Yeah, he
Yeah,
was
so
talking
Warner
about
Brothers
having
knew
his
what they know what's up.
Justice League card, right?
Yeah.
That's great. All right, so Sheldon goes over and knocks on Penny's door, and I think it's early morning. I don't think it's he knows, he says what time it is. What was it, like 7 a.m.?
No, he says like, why does everyone keep asking me that or something like that? Or
Ah,
oh, of course I know what time it is. I have this watch which is linked to the atomic clock in Boulder.
yeah. And then he realizes that it's a rhetorical question, and she's actually just upset. Which this goes again with that. I don't think he would lie at all because he's so upfront and matter of fact and straight and blunt. That if it he's confused about them asking, "Do you know what time it is?" Then I don't know. But anyways, he does talk to her and says Sheldon was or Leonard was lying, and goes on to tell her a more thorough lie,
Elaborate
elaborate
story.
lie, which he then in the next scene explains to Leonard as the symposium was actually just a lie to cover up that they are going to uh, an intervention for Sheldon's fake cousin, and they will be driving to what is it, Long Beach?
Yep. But before we dive further, I actually did a little bit of research on the atomic clock.
Oh, atomic clock time.
Yep, because I had no idea what he was talking about. So, like I was saying, Sheldon says that his watch is linked to the atomic clock in Boulder, Colorado. So, what's an atomic clock? An atomic clock, or atomic clocks, are designed to measure the precise length of a second, the base unit of modern timekeeping. The International System of Units defines the second as the time it takes a caesium 133 atom in a precisely defined state to oscillate exactly. So it and this is how often it does it: 9,192,631,770 times.
Whoa.
In an atomic clock, the natural oscillations of atoms act like a pendulum in a grandfather clock. However, atomic clocks are far more precise than conventional clocks because atomic oscillations have a much higher frequency and are much more stable, and it only has an error of 1 second up to 100 million years. Atomic clocks are among the most accurate timekeeping devices in history. That's all I got. It's like there's so much more to it and how they build it and how they actually connect it and everything like that. But it's like, wow, that's a very accurate clock.
I've heard before in the discussion of gravity influencing time um, that if you have an atomic clock, like basically on one level of a skyscraper at the bottom level, and have one at the very, very top of a huge skyscraper that they're so precise that technically at the end of a day or so long, they will be on different times slightly because they're so precise that gravity is actually manipulating how fast time goes on each part of the skyscraper. And I don't know any actual facts or details about the logistics of that, but it's kind of interesting that if you do have a precise enough clock, that you will start to see uh, differences in time depending on how close to the Earth you are and how far away you are and how gravity is impacting you.
That's crazy.
Right? Some interest. It's like magic, science. Love it.
Add that IQ point to our repertoire.
So, yeah, they're gonna go to Long Beach, and Penny comes in right before her show, and I thought it was interesting that she had this leopard print outfit on, and I'm like, that looks familiar. And I did a little bit of research, and although it's not exactly like Mimi's outfit in Rent, I connected with it because Mimi wears leopard print boots, I believe, in the scene that she's singing that song. And I'm like, okay, so maybe it's just coincidence, but I'm like, she kind of looks like what I remember Mimi looking like with the leopard print. So she is about to go off and do her performance, and Raj and Howard come in, and she's like, you know what? Leonard's such a good guy. I just want to tell everybody the truth about what a good guy he is. And she continues to hug him and show him some emotion. And I like the part Howard comes in and is like, group hug. And she's like, nope.
Shut that shit down.
Very quickly. And she comes forward saying that they're going to an intervention. And then she leaves, and Raj and Howard have to get up to date with the intervention and how it's a lie. But then they're all really caught up on going to Long Beach, and there's a murder mystery there, murder mystery dinner, and they decide to go to Long Beach anyways.
Yep, I have a couple IQ points in between all this.
Okay, go for it.
I was just really curious. When they, after Penny leaves, or as she's leaving, they say break a leg. And it just got me thinking of, like, where did that even come from?
Yeah.
So generally, it means good luck, but why? So apparently, historically, theater folk were superstitious and believed evil spirits haunted theaters. And if you wish someone good luck, then the spirits would ensure bad luck fell upon them. So in order to outwit the spirits, you would wish actors ill will, such as breaking a leg.
So it's
no idea. Had
the irony, or saying the opposite of what you mean. Not really sarcasm, but saying the opposite because you don't want to jinx yourself.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then, as you said, they went to the Queen Mary in Long Beach. So I did a little bit of research on the Queen Mary.
Nice. I should have done some on it, but I didn't.
Yes, Sheldon says that it was once the largest liner in the world and is now a hotel and restaurant where they host a surprisingly gripping murder mystery dinner. So I found this information on queenmary.com and Wikipedia. So it actually still is in Long Beach, and it still is a hotel. But they don't have a murder mystery right now.
Oh.
They possibly in the past, but they do have like a lot of haunted attractions. So
I was gonna say, I vaguely recall as a horror writer, there being like horror writer workshops and get-togethers on the Queen Mary because it's supposed to be so haunted and kind of creepy, right?
Yeah, I didn't get into, at least the website didn't go into why people think it was haunted, but here's a little history about it.
Okay.
It was built as an express service between Southampton, Cherbourg, which is northwest France, and New York. This was a commercial ship up until World War II, where it was converted into a transport for troops. Post-war, it was refitted for passengers and dominated the transatlantic passenger transportation market, along with the Queen Elizabeth, up until the jet age in the 1950s. So after several years of lost profits, it was retired in 1967 and shipped to Long Beach, California, where it became a tourist attraction. So, for as being famous as it is, as being a famous huge boat, I wanted to know like where does it side by side with the Titanic,
Yeah.
the most famous one.
Mm-hmm.
So side by side with the Titanic, the Queen Mary was actually larger and more powerful. But then again, it came out significantly later than the Titanic. So the Queen Mary launched in 1934 versus the Titanic, which was in 1911. So that's how it got bigger and better because time, technology,
A couple
all
decades of
that stuff.
technology.
Yeah. And the current attractions on the Queen Mary, since they don't have a murder mystery right now, what do they have? They have master magician Aidan Sinclair, who is known for being on America's Got Talent. There is a dinner and haunted history tour, so it's not like an act or a play or anything like that. There's a paranormal ship walk and paranormal investigations.
So there's a lot of ghost stuff about it being haunted. They just don't talk on the website about why they think it's haunted.
Yeah, if it is, it's on a page that I just didn't make it to. I browsed around for it. Maybe I just couldn't find it.
I love ghost tours like that. That's like my big thing. Like whenever I go to a new city, I'm like, what ghost tour can I do? So I
The
think
ghost tour of Seattle is super nice. I take it you've done that?
I think
The
so.
underground tour?
Yeah, the underground one. Yeah.
Dude, that's so good.
It was really cool. And for those of you who have not been to Seattle, apparently the city, like most big cities throughout time, burned down at one point. And instead of rebuilding the buildings, they basically just built on top of them. And so you can go down below the city and see where old buildings used to be that were kind of gutted by fires.
Yeah,
And
it was also because of the we were so close to the water
mhm,
too that they didn't have an understanding of the tides. So they had to build like the city like 10 feet above that everything was on like these like housing stilts or something like that.
pedestals or what are they called? Columns or something, support
Yeah,
beams,
something.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Seattle has a really rich history.
I think it's really cool. Yeah. So if
Yeah.
you ever find yourself in Seattle, do the underground tour. It's worth it.
Yeah, a
Yeah.
little fun fact about it just came to me. UPS is originally from Seattle too. And did you know how UPS started?
Huh.
Because of prostitution.
Ooh, I didn't know
Yeah, at
that.
least that's why I learned because they needed to like have like a front for prostitution of how they all the hookers would kind of like go around and everything like that. So they created this front about like delivering packages to people and everything.
Nice.
But then eventually it just turned into like a legitimate thing. It's like, okay, like I guess we might as well just deliver packages. And then it just turned into UPS.
It's like at some point you're making so much money, like, yeah, let's just go legit.
It's like, yeah, it's like, let's just, whatever.
I know.
Just deliver the package. It's fine. Well, if you're going to go over there anyways, can you bring this package?
I know with Prohibition, Seattle had some of the richest history and during the time of Prohibition, and that there was, I believe it was a cop who started bootlegging and entering into speakeasies and promoting alcohol, and he had a bunch of big names, and the feds, I believe, I need to look into the names, but they followed him and basically broke into his house. I believe the warrants get kind of confusing, and of course, this is Prohibition, so 100 years ago. Uh, they got into his house and basically got his little black phone book, his contacts book, and started calling all the people in it, saying, "Hey, I'm going to have a big boozing party. Come over for drinks." And as they walked through the door, they arrested each one, and it became a big
Oh,
staple on wiretapping. And if the feds have the authority to tap telephones, and how warrants kind of became a thing behind that. So yeah, Seattle has some rich history, and some criminal in nature, but some cool stuff.
yes. Well, back to the Queen Mary.
Yeah.
Since it was a murder mystery dinner, I also looked into the dining that they offer. Unfortunately, right now, I'm guessing because it's COVID, that all of their restaurants and everything have been pretty much shut down or they're temporarily suspended. But they have like a marketplace for coffee, pastries, and breakfast sandwiches. They have casual dining, which is called the Chelsea Chowder House and Bar. Then they also have fine dining, which is Sir Winston's Restaurant and Lounge, but they're all temporarily suspended.
Hmm.
But I looked into their what they call the famous Sunday brunch, again, temporarily suspended, and the menu looks awesome.
Oh,
So if you ever go there, it does sound like a really fun time.
brunch it
You could
up.
do some paranormal ship walks. You could do a haunted history tour. A magician's there, and then their brunch has a lot of breakfast stuff: eggs Benedict, pancakes, waffle station, omelet station,
Maple
a
syrup.
carving station. They should have an entire slew of maple syrup.
A
My
fountain
God,
of syrup, if you will.
they are missing out right now because that was not on the website. So if any reps from the Queen Mary are listening, you better hop on that.
This is how
You're
you do
welcome.
it.
Yeah,
We have spoken.
yeah, but yeah, that lots of stuff.
And here, around here, I get 1 point for Sheldon because Sheldon, after they're home, he's knocking back at Leonard's door, and we have the understanding that they've gone through the murder mystery dinner, right? And Sheldon's knocking, and Leonard goes, what does he say? Something like, "Give it up. The murderer was the captain. I don't care if the story
The
doesn't make
first mate, I
sense."
think you
The
said,
first
yeah.
mate. There we go. And that is definitely me. If a story doesn't make sense, I do not let it go. My dad and I will actually sit down and discuss something and say, "This doesn't make sense." Why? And try to make sense of it. And it drives my mom and my friends crazy because they're like, "It's a movie. It doesn't have to make sense." I'm like, "No, it has to make sense." And I will discuss it in length. And days after the fact, I go, "It still doesn't make sense." People are like, "Shut up, Ryan." So 1 point for Sheldon in the story not making sense.
Well, talking about storylines in movies and TV shows, that's like the entire premise of our podcast.
Right?
That's
Exactly. So who
like,
manipulated whom?
well. Just a couple of sociopaths on a podcast.
Manipulating each other left and right. So yeah, where were we at? They're in the bedroom. There's a new problem because
Yeah.
Leo, Sheldon's cousin, is a middle child. And a middle child would not go back into rehab. That he's likely to be acting out for his parents' approval and attention. And this goes into some discussion of child stereotypes. But basically, to fix the problem, Sheldon does hire an actor to play his cousin.
Did you do an IQ point on whether or not middle children are actually prone to addiction?
I did. Not necessarily addiction, but the stereotypes behind them, which would lead to the addiction. How about you?
Yeah, it's kind of the same thing.
So I went with a website called womeninhome.com, which had sources from different studies. And from what I found, not just on this website, but other ones, but it's pretty much a mixed bag. And there's assumptions. And I like how they discuss it as pop psychology, that we are taking a lot of liberties with the assumptions. But the notion is, and studies have kind of found that first children, the stereotype is typically true that they are most adult like, and they are held to the highest standards because as first time parents are usually strict and nervous, and they have their own anxieties, and they are trying to do everything perfectly. um, and that anxiety sometimes does go off on the first child, who feels like it's their responsibility to live up to the standards of their parents. The middle child, the stereotype is typically that they are rebels, breaking away from their older or middle child, second child. Uh, they typically are being led by their older sibling, who feels like they're more adult like, and the second child typically resist that, or in stereotypes, will fight that, rebel against it. But they typically are considered not to have as many freedoms as the youngest child. And so they're kind of in between and kind of get some more relaxing. And for that case, they typically are considered to be social butterflies. Uh, they're thought to be jealous of other kids, their other siblings, again, rebels. But from this website, experts are kind of saying that that's technically not true, that we find more the middle children are the peacekeepers, that they're given some privileges, but some expectations, and they try to find a middle ground between the older siblings and younger siblings and try to keep things on neutral ground. But again, studies kind of mixed up. And then for the youngest child, if you have three kids in a family, um, the stereotype is that they're spoiled, that they're the joker, and that they're the baby of the family because they're the youngest. And studies say that this is some truth to it, that typically parents are more relaxed with the youngest child because they have gone through all their anxieties. They know what to expect. They're more relaxed and lenient on the youngest child because they know it's going to be okay. And that leniency can go into a child's development, letting them be a little bit more off the wall, not as put together necessarily as the older child. But again, this is, take it with a grain of salt because some studies say differently. And then, of course, there is the only child, and studies suggest that the stereotypes that only children are completely selfish and spoiled and self centered is false. However, there are studies that suggest that only child children, are overconfident, that because they are interact so much with adults, they often see themselves as adults themselves and take them as seriously and as mature as adults when they are still children.
Well, that actually makes a lot of sense, and and I feel like I can confirm a lot of that based off experience. I am the younger child, and my brother definitely had like he's definitely was treated more like an adult. He definitely had a lot more responsibilities, higher expectations. And then when my parents noticed that that didn't work out so well with him, granted he's very successful now. He was in all the advanced classes and stuff like that. They were definitely a lot more lax on me.
I think my parents are probably a little bit more relaxed on me, but I think, again, we're going into nature versus nurture, that um, my older sibling was much more strict on herself, and that I don't necessarily feel drive to like get straight A's, or to, I procrastinate, and maybe that's the way I was raised. But I think there's something to say just with genetics as well, that my genes say, it doesn't matter, you can put it off, or you don't have to try quite as hard, that I'm not going to beat myself up about it. But to some extent, yeah, I've seen that older siblings are a little bit more uh, obsessive and hold themselves to higher accountability.
Well, I did a little bit of research on this, but I actually didn't go into the stereotypes of the
Yeah.
birth order or anything like that. I was actually more interested in how that relates to drug addiction. Because as I watched this episode, he made it seem like that middle children were more prone to drug addiction. So I
Mm-hmm.
looked more into that. So what I found was on the springboardcenter.org. It's a .org, so it must be true.
Of course.
So according according to this site, most research has shown that all people can be prone to addictions regardless of birth order. So middle children in general, so no, middle children do not have a higher likelihood of drug addiction. And very similar to what you were saying, it goes into like the stereotypes of older children, middle children, and the younger children. Oldest children feel anxious due to the pressures of success. So if they lead into addiction, then that's why. Middle children feel lost and unsupported, and younger children are impulsive and self centered. However, none of these points to an elevated risk of addiction. What does put children at greater risk is having a parent that has an addiction.
Mm.
Um, so, except this research does not show biological or genetic predisposition, it seems more environmental. The risk is elevated due to drugs as a coping mechanism for a chaotic family. And then each child, depending on birth order, will have their own reasons for going into it.
So it makes sense
So,
that the guy playing
yeah.
his cousin saying if he was abused as a kid, that would be more of an indicator of why he was an addict.
Yeah. So in terms of Sheldon's backstory, is Lee is more prone to drug addiction based on the fact that he comes from a broken home, not that he's the middle child.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And so I thought this was kind of weird that Sheldon was digging so much into the stereotypes of being a middle child and it coming up that that's uh, pop psychology, that it's kind of more entertainment that's not necessarily as documented or even believed. But for some reason, Sheldon is hooking onto this as character motivation.
Yep.
When I wonder if maybe I kind of would think that he'd be the one saying data science doesn't necessarily prove that. He'd be the first one to say that, it seems like.
Yeah, it's like you were saying earlier that they're really relying on what's called pop psychology,
Mm-hmm.
which I don't really fully understand what that term means. Do you?
My understanding is basically psychology that has taken root in popular culture and built a name for itself because it seems interesting even without a lot of studies or what's the word, documentation, proof, evidence. And it starts with Sigmund Freud discussing the notion of our childhoods influencing who we are, our repressed memories, dreams having meaning on who we are, and what we become, and this leading into, I believe, Carl Jung is also in this manner, and what became the Myers-Briggs test and the personality traits of identifying ourselves as, by four letters, what I'm INFJ, right? And saying my personality is broken down into these categories when technically that's considered, that is stereotyping, just saying that because you answered these ways, we can assume you'll act a certain way. When studies say that's not necessarily true.
Okay.
So that's my understanding. I don't know
Yeah.
exactly why it's considered popular, although it tends to be the most popular or well-known versions. Oedipus complex. Um, Oedipus complex. Oh, Frasier. Frasier talks a lot about it because Frasier loves Sigmund Freud, and he always gets in fights with his brother Niles. If you ever watch that, listeners, if you ever watch Frasier, they talk about whether or not they should be listening or following the teachings of Freud because he's kind of been disproven that he's just pop psychology.
Love Frasier.
Love Frasier. So yeah, apparently Sheldon's wrong in this regard that science says that their birth order or their home life, right? I mean, yeah, their genetics not necessarily as much of an influence as the home they're raised in, those around them, what they experience. But I did point out that DJ Qualls, Donald Joseph Qualls, is guest starring. Does he come back? Or I guess you don't have to answer that. So spoiler. We won't
Do you
say.
want me? He
No,
doesn't
let's
come
not
back.
say
Don't
he
worry.
doesn't come back. Okay. But he is a guest star, and I know him from Road Trip. Did you ever see Road
Yep.
Trip?
Good. Oh yeah, road
Uh,
trip. The pancake. Oh, the pancake scene.
yes, yes,
he he deserved it because he didn't put maple syrup on it.
yes, he did. He neglected that, and he got what he deserved. I was talking to somebody the other day who had never
Hey,
even
lack
heard
of
of Road Trip.
empathy is a sign of a sociopath. How dare you?
But I love that movie and I enjoyed his character, so he was a nice little addition for this episode. And yeah, They basically say that they couldn't get him back into rehab, so he's living with them for a little while. And Penny basically says, okay, hey, Leonard, why don't you come over and watch the recording of Rent? And so Karma catches up with him, and he now not only has to watch her singing, but she gets to watch his reactions to him listening. So
Yep.
he acts to put forth a few more lies to be polite and have manners and be nice to her when he's reacting to the full recording.
Yeah.
I like that little turn of
Uh,
the events there.
yeah.
And then
And then
oh yeah,
Toby, well, DJ Qualls, his character is Toby Loobenfeld, which is actually how we got the name of the episode.
yeah.
He's a research assistant in the particle physics lab that minored in theater, and that's why Sheldon picked him. And he wanted to add more into the backstory, which got super dark. Actually, they made it
Yeah.
lighthearted, but it's like when you think about it, it's like, holy fuck, that's some dark stuff.
Some
And
sexual
then,
abuse as a child. Yeah, he really got into some
yeah,
dark stuff. Uh,
yeah, the Philippines.
Philippines.
Oh.
And
But then they get into a fight. Toby gets into a fight, or cousin Leo gets into
cousin
a fight at
Leo.
Sheldon about his backstory and everything like that, because he goes off script and everything like that. And one of the things that they mentioned was the genetic predisposition to addiction and double blind studies. So I did a little bit of research on that.
I want to hear. I didn't do research, but I was a little curious about it. I just didn't make a note to do research.
So the question is, can you be
Predisposed.
genetically predisposed to addiction? So I found this on the American Addiction Centers.org. So first, in order to fully understand this, you need to understand genetics versus heredity. So genetics refers to our DNA, and that is passed down from parent to child and specifies certain traits. People have 46 chromosomes in 23 pairs. Individuals inherit one of each pair from their mother and one of each pair from their father, and this happens at random, which can explain differences in siblings. That's why we look differently. We look similar, but we look different. Heredity refers to the way that different characteristics and traits are passed down from parent to child through changes in genes and DNA sequence. An inherited trait is genetically determined, but not all traits are genetic. Height and eye color are heredity traits. So, in a sense, yes, there is a genetic predisposition to drug addiction because it can be passed down on through DNA. However, in order for addiction to develop, there needs to be some sort of environmental factors at play. The person needs access to the drug and needs to use it repeatedly in order to develop that addiction. So, to put this generally, genetics results in about 50% of the risk of addiction. And scientists have identified multiple genes associated with addiction. So there isn't just one alcoholism gene. There's all these different genes out there which could result in addiction. I didn't list them all because I could just spew the names out, but the names are kind of just a bunch of letters and numbers.
Yeah.
So it might get a little confusing. They're names like CLU3, MAOA, ALDH2.
We don't
So it's
have
like, yeah, I didn't.
PhDs. We don't need no stinking names.
Yeah. So I found that interesting. That it kind of is like 50%. Like it's there, but it's not there. Like I could have the genes too within me, but I would never know if I don't have access to the drug. Like if you're never actually exposed to a certain drug or anything or a certain thing that you could be addicted to, you'll never become addicted.
If you never have it, you'll never know.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then a follow up on that, they get in each other's faces about a double blind study.
Yeah.
So I was kind of curious, like, what's a double blind study? A double blind study is one in which neither of the participants nor the experimenters know who is receiving a particular treatment. This procedure is utilized to prevent bias in research results. Double-blind studies are particularly useful for preventing bias due to demand characteristics or the placebo effect. So, for example, let's imagine that researchers are investigating the effects of a new drug. In a double blind study, the researchers who interact with the participants would not know who was receiving the actual drug and who was receiving a placebo. So they're blind on both sides.
Yeah, and like it makes sense because there are small, subtle things that even if the person conducting the test knows of who's getting what, they might have subtle ticks or tells that suggest like, oh, you're getting the real thing, oh, you're getting the sugar pill, and that might rub off on the people and how they respond. So if the conductor has no idea who's getting what, they have to assume everybody's getting the right thing, or there's no way to tell, and they're not pushing any signs onto the people being studied. I do this with beer tasting. That when documentation has to be kept over what's what, but usually things are poured, matched, mixed and matched. Usually there's with taste testing, especially with beer, you get 3 samples, and one's usually the off flavor, and 2 are the regular flavor, or whatever it might be, new recipe versus an old recipe. And you have so many people taste them and make notes, and the person pouring doesn't know, because if they knew, they might influence the study. But after everybody tastes, they compare the data and figure out, were they able to decipher which the one was the odd one out the majority of the time.
Yeah, that's really helpful because at my work, I kind of do something really similar on a regular basis. We serve food and everything. So
Yeah.
when we taste everything, it's like I can't, as the server, it's like I don't want to know which one is either, because as I converse things, as I like explain what they are and tell them what the purpose is, it's like I don't want to sway them in any way. So it's better for me to just not know either. So it's like let's just mix it all up. Sometimes I know just by looking at it as like the cook and everything. So it's like,
Yeah.
well, but sometimes when we get like some other food that somebody else makes, it's like, okay, let's just blindly taste them. Let's not even talk about it. Like let's just eat it. What do you like?
And see what happens from there.
Yeah.
It's interesting how these influences can mess up studies, or influences can impact us without even realizing that they do.
Sometimes it drives me crazy because some people, we even tell them like specifically, just write your comments down, don't talk about it, because we don't want you to sway anyone.
Yeah.
There's a few people at work that are just really loud voices that they just like, oh, that one tastes like crap, and he says that in front of everyone. It's like, bro, you are swaying the audience right now. What are you doing?
I remember again, friend that we've mentioned before, Jacob, held a wine tasting. Have I told you about this?
I was there.
You were there. Okay, you remember.
I think about this all the time. Jake, I love you, but fuck you.
This is insane. Yeah, very manipulative. But
Yes.
the goal is, if you ever want to try this game out, I would say it is a game more than anything. But do a wine tasting and keep, of course, one person's the pourer, so it's not going to be double blind. And if you're holding the event, you know exactly what's going on. But you pour a glass, samples for everybody to taste, and they take notes of wine or a drink, whatever. And they take notes, they discuss it a little bit. And like you said, hearing somebody else's information, that influences each other. So suddenly it's like, that is really fruity. I taste peach, I taste whatever. And then you pour the next round, and everybody talks about that. And like, oh yeah, I can taste hints of chocolate. This one's not as sweet. It's a lot drier. And you do it a few times. And then Jake pulls out the bottle and says, you're all drinking the same bottle of wine. It's Costco value wine. And it's been the same thing for every single tasting. And you all came up with different stuff. But in our minds, they all tasted different.
And that was the crazy thing, was like there was this social influence, but there was also us getting drunker and drunker throughout the night. We did
Absolutely.
not do the wine tasting thing where we spit.
Spit out. No, yeah, we drank it, and that's going to influence things too.
Yeah, I still remember that so vividly. Like, wow, we're
Wow.
fucking dumb.
And I was so certain too. I'm like, these are different. This one's so much chocolatier.
Yeah.
So yeah, did you have anything more on double blind studies or
Nope,
no?
that's all I
It.
got.
Okay. And then we get yeah, they go to watch the Brent reenactment play musical, and then the ending credits comes up, and or I guess the post scene, and Leo is laying on Penny. They're watching TV, and she's kind of giving him caresses, a little cuddle, saying, "You're so strong," and Sheldon and Leonard are in the kitchen, and Leonard is kind of fretting about that, saying, "How long is he going to stay with us? He wants him out of there."
Yep, and Sheldon just is very committed to the lie, and he tells him he's a homeless drug addict. Where is he gonna go? So committed.
So committed. He's going to be there a while, but spoiler alert, he does not show up for the next episode, so he does leave after pretty quickly.
Yep.
And that's the end. That's all I have.
That's it. Yeah, that's all I got.
And
overall thoughts?
Overall, I'm glad that we are. I enjoyed this episode more than last week, and I'm looking forward to what's to come, because you mentioned that things get even stronger. And yeah, compared to last week, I thought this episode was much better. It's just a few character discrepancies that I was kind of like, I don't know if that seems as accurate as I would assume, but who knows? People are interesting.
Yeah.
Can't stereotype.
Yeah, and people change. People, like, I guess we can't really hold them that accountable in terms of like writing the character a little differently as the seasons go on.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. What are your thoughts on it?
I found them a little annoying. I found like the whole like like I it's kind of funny, but at the same time it's a little annoying. It's like how like Sheldon would not listen to reason, because Leonard was trying to tell him like, dude, Penny's not going to go to that website. Penny is not going to investigate this. But there's always that fear of what if. But at the same time, it's like, come on, spend 10 minutes with Penny and you know she ain't going to look at that. You know she's going to move on with her life. Tell her you can't go, make up something, move on with life. But then it was just so annoying that like Sheldon would not let that go, and he had to have his own control over the situation.
Yeah,
it's like it's his god complex, which we kind of mentioned before, where he had to be the one in control of situations. He had to be the smartest person.
Yeah,
he had to be the puppet master of this one, where it's like, well, my story, my intricate lie is so much better than yours because I came up with it.
The manipulator.
Yeah. So that's why, I mean, it was okay. It was definitely some of the weak, like this is one of the weaker episodes throughout like the series. But it was definitely better than the previous episode, the Cooper Hofstadter polarization. Yeah. Definitely better than that one. So we're on the rise. We're starting to go on the rise. I'm actually on IMDb right now, looking ahead again to see what's coming up. It's like, oh, next one's pretty good.
And I can say that this episode brought us up 1 point on each side. I am 11 points not like Sheldon, and 12 points being like Sheldon.
Let's count how many IQ points we had. 8 IQ points. Wow. And 2 partial IQ points.
Not bad.
The IQ points in this episode were so much more interesting than last episode.
Yeah.
Not to knock any new viewers out there. Please check out the previous episode.
They were great too, we promise.
Yeah. I take back everything I said. I am not verbally judoing you. Anything else to add in this episode? Otherwise, I forgot to mention at the beginning of this episode, I'll mention it now. Ryan, like, since Big Bang Theory is all about like kind of nerd culture. They talk about Lord of the Rings a lot throughout this entire series. So conveniently enough, the new show Rings of Power just dropped this past weekend. So by the time that this episode airs, we'll be on episode 3. So the first 2 episodes are out right now. So Ryan and I wanted to give like a little bit of a review of that. So, but we'll do it at the very end because we're going to be pretty heavy spoilers. We're just going to talk about it freely. So we'll let everybody know when that happens.
Yeah.
So on that note, we could actually just give out our outro and then we'll get into the review.
Yeah.
All right. So everyone, thanks for listening. Leave us a review on Apple Podcasts because that's the only one that actually apparently records it. We're also on Spotify, Apple, and Stitcher. Follow us on Instagram at Theoretical Nonsense Pod. Send us an email at theoreticalnonsensepod@gmail.com. I'll put those in the show notes. Shout out to John Kim for doing our logo. And we'll see you next time where we talk about season 1, episode 11, The Pancake Anomaly.
Ooh, pancakes
Thanks
and
for
syrup.
listening.
Thanks for listening, everyone.
All right. Now, for anybody who stuck around and wants to listen about the Rings of Power, here we go.
Post-credit
spoiler,
scene.
full spoilers. So if you don't want to hear anything, if you want to watch it on your own, just turn it off now. Skip to the next episode.
We won't judge you much.
All right. So Ryan only watched the first episode. I watched both episodes because it came out 2 episodes on Friday. So overall thoughts?
I kind of loved it.
Great. Yeah.
You know, I don't know if I can really compare it to Lord of the Rings because that holds such a high standard for me. But as far as fantasy goes, it seems like a great fantasy show, and it's beautifully shot, beautiful scenery, great music, and the story itself has me interested.
Yeah, I felt the same way. It was beautifully shot. Like that scenery and everything, it's like gorgeous. Like my wife hates Lord of the Rings. She's just not interested at all, but she was kind of like peeking over every once in a while. It's like, whoa, that's gorgeous.
What's going on over there?
Yeah, it's beautifully shot. I'm a very casual Lord of the Rings fan. I've watched the movies multiple times, but I've never read the books, so I don't really know that much of the lore. I know a little bit because of our old IQ point, like a few episodes ago.
Yeah.
Where we talked about orcs and elves and everything like that. That's pretty much like the extent of my knowledge. So I went into this as a very casual viewer, and I really enjoyed it. I think the first couple episodes are a little on the slow side because it has to reintroduce the world. This is years before all of the events of The Hobbit and the Fellowship of the Ring. So we're introduced to new characters. So I understand that we have to take time to establish the world, who is everyone and everything. But I don't know if it was just because I was coming off a long week of work, but by the first 10 minutes of episode 2, since I was trying to watch them back to back, I was falling asleep. But that might have been because of work, or it is a little on the slow side. I didn't think that it's really capturing me as much as other TV shows, but I'm still interested.
You know, the first episode, I felt like it starts off very, very rushed, that it's trying to introduce so much stuff, and it basically gives you the Cliff Notes version of an entire war that's lasted centuries, and then it picks up at the end of the war. But yeah, I was kind of like, whoa, if this was Game of Thrones, we probably would have had characters interacting in that war, or at least building up from the end of it and building into this story. So, you know, my thought is they're really trying to get this story jump started, and in doing that, they gave us the Cliff Notes version of the war, then kind of slowed things down so that they can pick up pace and build momentum. But I can see what you mean by it being kind of slow.
Yeah, like the first 10 minutes where they're explaining everything, that was like, whoa, holy crap, what's going on? But then after that, it was kind of like, okay, let's keep going. And
something happened.
It was really good, though. The entire time I was thinking that I kept thinking of Underworld. Do you ever watch those movies?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
uh shoot, I'm gonna butcher her name. They say it all the time. Galadriel, the main character. Um, she reminds me of the girl in Underworld, that she's so dedicated to this cause,
Hmm.
so like into it, like I am a warrior. I am gonna hunt down this evil. This is my life. This is all I know. I've been doing it for centuries. It just really reminded me of that, and it was a little over the top. Like I understand the dedication, but at the same time, I was like, oh, it's a little over the top.
I kind of picked up on that. Well, it's me and thinking about stories having to make sense. They were on the ship at the end going towards the west, right? Uh, Back to their homeland. And she realizes that her task isn't over and jumps overboard. And I was kind of confused because they were a good distance away from the land. So is she just going to swim back to land?
Yeah, I mean, because
Yeah.
when they go to the Undying Lands, they basically lose their physical manifestation. They basically become the spirits and become one with the universe,
Yeah.
pretty much. That's what it seems like. So if it's either jump off or you're gone.
But how many miles is she going to have to swim? I figure after, even for an elf who's centuries old, 50
Yeah.
miles, 100 miles of swimming is before a shark gets her or she loses energy. She has no life jacket. So I don't know. That's me nitpicking
You
realism.
know what? Warrior commander, she must be in good
All
shape.
right, fair. I'll take
Yeah.
it.
But yeah, it's what do you think of the characters? What do you think of the actors?
I think they're doing a good job so far. I like the elf, all the elves, the elf ranger with the bow, right? The guard,
Yeah.
um, and the Hobbit girl. What's her name? Lonnie?
Oh, Nori.
Nori. Uh, I had friends like her as a kid, tomboys and uh, both girl and boy friends who were very mischievous almost and outgoing and, you know, kind of going on adventures. And I'm like, wow, I can see my friends in her and makes her very interesting to me because I kind of relate or connect as a character starting an adventure. I also like, I guess in the first episode you only see a glimpse, but there's a doggy in the garden. I'm like, oh, I'm curious what the doggy's gonna do.
Yeah.
Hope
Hope it's okay.
it's okay.
Hope it stays safe.
He's a good boy. Who's a good boy?
And one thing was, it was driving me a little crazy. One of the human characters, I think her character's name is Browen. It's the main female human,
the
Bronwyn.
She's like the healer.
Yeah, she was in How I Met Your Mother. I was like,
Oh,
I was like staring at her. I was like, is that her? Is that Nora? From how she was a love interest of Barney's.
I'm gonna have to look into that. I'm gonna take a quick
And the
look.
guy who I'm on IMDb right now, the guy who plays Elrond, what did he play? Young Eddard Stark?
I don't know.
Yes, I was right. He is. He plays young Ned. I
Wow,
was like just staring at him. I was like, why does he look so familiar?
this is crazy. I had no idea. Although I did pick up on something that the son was it Galadriel's son? No, not Galadriel. Who's the
The human?
Yeah, the human
I think his name was Theo.
Theo? I'm not finding her. Oh, no. Is it Brownwind's son?
Yeah.
Uh, you mentioned before that kids in television shows often irritate you, and this is no exception. That you're kind of like, why is he being such a jackass? Just do what you're told. And we were talking about, what was it? Which I still have to finish, but why am I blanking? The one about the money laundering family working for the cartel.
Oh, Ozark.
Ozark, yeah. That the son in
God.
Ozark really irritated you. I'm like, this is kind of the
Yes, that
same
kid.
trope of the annoying son, right?
Yeah. So far, it's kind of like, God, you just look like a bitch.
Yeah, yeah. I wasn't gonna say it, but I was thinking it.
Yeah. But yeah, we're still establishing worlds. I'm still very interested in the character dynamic. You can definitely see the poor relationship between all the different race classes. Like the humans don't like the elves. The elves are kind of just off in their own world. Yeah, so I'm really interested in seeing more of that.
hmm Oh, I do recognize her, Nora in How I Met Your Mother.
Yeah.
I remember now.
Yeah, so far I'm enjoying it. Like I said, it feels a little on the slow side. Like a lot is happening, but there are just so many characters that they're kind of just jumping around everywhere. So
Yeah.
I know it's going to pick up. I know we're going to grow to like really enjoy the characters. I'm just not really there yet. I feel like other shows like capture you or hook you on, but or leave like such a better cliffhanger that makes you want more. And I just didn't really feel that in these last couple episodes.
So maybe it'll pick up. And
I mean, I love Lord of the Rings, so I know I'm going to watch it regardless. So it's
with
got that going for him.
as many characters as there are and difficult names, it's so far I'm keeping them separated, but I have no idea what their names are. I'm just so far gone. It's probably going to take a while for that to build up.
I do this thing where, regardless of the TV show, I always have my closed captioning on.
Yeah.
Just because, like, when you get into like really good TV, like with a sitcom, you never really have that much worry because they talk loud and they speak very clearly. But then when you get into like more intense shows, like on HBO and things like that, they kind of whisper or mumble and stuff like that. So I just got in the habit of just always having my closed captioning on.
I noticed the other day that watching South Park, the kid in it, Kenny, is always mumbling, but the closed captions actually said what he was saying.
What, really?
Yeah, and I'm like, wait, I thought we weren't supposed to know, but apparently, like, if you listen carefully enough, you can decipher. But the closed captions were definitely talking about a sex dream he had. I'm like, whoa,
Oh, Kenny.
Kenny.
Is he still dying in every episode? I haven't watched South Park in like
I don't
years.
know. They stopped that years ago. I don't know why they got sick of it or they didn't want to be uh not cliche, but this known for this one thing, right? So they
Yeah.
kind of stopped it. Like, yeah, we're not going to continue to entertain that.
Okay, because I remember he like officially died and went to heaven, like the South Park movie, Bigger,
Yeah,
Longer, and Uncut. And then after a while, you just don't see him for a while, and then they just brought him back, where they just like he just kind of appears, and
yeah. And Butters like
it's
took
like,
his
oh
place
hey,
for a little while, right?
yeah,
And
yeah,
everybody hated Butters, but I like Butters.
no, I don't mind Butters. But anyways, back to Rings of Power.
Yeah,
we,
Rings of
we
Power.
deviated.
I'm looking forward to the second episode, but yeah, I can see what you're saying. I have high hopes if they're putting this much money into it and the scenery and acting that the story's probably going to pick up. It's just going to take a little bit of time. Um, they might be banking
Yeah,
too much on people loving Lord of the Rings stories and just hanging out because they want to, as opposed to trying to hook them on its own merit.
yeah. I mean, so far it has like an 83% on Rotten, so it's not doing too bad. I think like the uber nerds might freak out about it
hmm
just because of like the since I guess they're not 100% following the exact Tolkien lore.
Yeah.
Like they like apparently Amazon got certain rights to the show, but not all the rights. So they're kind of just taking what they could and just building a world around that.
That's going to be, yeah, I could see. diehard fans being irritated by that.
Yeah.
I could.
But as a casual fan, I don't mind.
Yeah, I'm gonna
I'm
go with
liking
it.
it.
I think it really did bother me when Disney got the rights to Star Wars, and I think they did a great job with Star Wars, but they cut out Shadows of the Empire as canon. And I'm like, that was my favorite story and favorite video game, and now it's nothing.
Yeah, the movies kind of got progressively worse and worse. Yeah, every time I watch Rise of the Skywalker, I hate it more and more.
Compared to
And I still love Star Wars. Mandalorian's amazing though.
I've only watched a couple episodes of that. I kind of lost my Disney subscription. I'm like, oh, I'll pick it back up and finish at some point, but haven't done it yet.
If you're a Star Wars fan, like Mandalorian to me is like the best Star Wars content out there, just period. I think it's better than I'll say it. I think it's better than the original.
Wow.
Than the original trilogy, better than the prequels.
That's a bold statement, sir. Bold statement.
It's great. They did it right. And hopefully Rings of Power will kind of do the same thing. Hopefully it'll open up a whole world of things and bring on new fans and turn the old fans into believers.
Old fans become better fans, right?
Yeah, I mean, just because it's not part of like the lore, we kind of had this conversation last time. Just because it's not like the original, or if it's like a retelling or a reimagining, it doesn't mean that it can't be better. It doesn't mean it can't be good.
Yeah, it's just you have to give it some leeway to begin with.
Yeah, at the end of the day, it's a TV show.
Yeah,
it's like
as long as they don't just cancel it after like episode 4 and leave us all wondering what the hell happened. That is the worst. That is.
Oh man. Well, yeah, I haven't heard anything about this one, but like speaking of that, like it's always kind of funny how certain shows get like picked up like really easily and some die really quick.
Yeah.
Game of Thrones, House of Targaryen, they're only on like episode 3 and they already renewed it for a season 2.
Wow. And
or House of the Dragon. That's
House of Dragon.
Yeah.
Sandman on Netflix. Like I've heard mixed reviews of that, and I wanted to watch it, but it's canceled for season 2. And I'm like, I'm sure it's not going to wrap up. Why do I bother watching it now? I still want to.
That's it. I thought it did really well. I didn't. Maybe I'm the problem because I didn't watch it. I didn't get Netflix couldn't count that view.
That's what I was thinking. It's my own fault because I didn't give them that one view. I blame myself.
It's our fault.
Yes.
We did this.
It's us. We apologize.
Yeah. We're obviously the center of the world and everything revolves around us, and if we didn't do it,
what else would it revolve around? Of course it does.
Shit, I better hop on House of the Dragon then.
Yeah.
We changed our mind. We're not going to do a season 2. Rob and Ryan didn't watch it, so.
How do they know our names? Because we are the most important.
They name dropped us. But I am going to keep watching Rings of Power. I think is it every Friday?
I was thinking it's every Friday, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, I guess I'll watch it if my wife will let me take the TV time.
That's fair.
Yeah.
If not, then it probably gets
just going to get canceled.
Yeah.
Cool. Any other thoughts on Rings of Power?
Nope. I think that covers it. I'm really curious of episode 2. Well, I'm curious, but I'm a little fearful now that you said that it's not really all that cliffhanging.
I mean, it'll get there.
It'll get there.
Sorry if I spoiled that for you.
No, I'll never watch it again. It's ruined.
Yeah, done.
Done.
All right. Well, that's it. That's our review. Let us know and email us if you enjoy having us review other TV shows or talk about it, because there's lots of content out there. We could just watch a couple episodes of a new show and just kind of talk about it. If you're interested, Ryan, if you're even interested in that,
we can be nerds about anything you want us to be nerds about.
Yes, just let us know.
We are easily manipulated.
All right. Well, thanks for sticking around, everyone.
Talk to you later.
This was Theoretical Nonsense, the Big Bang Theory watch-along podcast. No PhD necessary. Our intro and outro music is by Alex Grohl, and our logo is by John Kim. Thanks for listening. Never waste a boner.